Hey everybody, it's NoodleDog, and I have a question for you. I want you to go back as far as you can, your childhood more than likely. I want you to go back and I want you to think as hard as you can, and I want you to answer a question for me. What was the weirdest fantasy you've ever had as a kid? Something realistic though, something that you wouldn't have to worry about, dying for. Well, me, I have one, and I'm going to share it with you today. This is the refrigerator story. Now already I feel kind of strange admitting this, but as a kid I really enjoyed the refrigerator and the freezer, and I was already a slightly above average tall child when I was younger, so I was able to open the fridge and freezer as I pleased. But that's besides the point. The main thing I wanted to get to today is the fact that as a kid I used to open the fridge up at the dead of night at 12 o'clock in the morning. Remember those memes where it's like me trying to get olives at 2 a.m. in the morning? Yeah, that was me as a kid. And being that kid, I would go into the fridge and I would just stare. And I would just stare blankly into the fridge in the dead of night with the lights on, with the cold air blasting my face. Now, it started when I was about 5 or 6. I used to hate being hot and being in the South. This is the U.S. South, by the way. It's really hot and it's really humid in the morning, especially when you're on the coast where I am. So normally I would go and I would get in bed and I would sleep through the night, but as I got a little bit older I noticed that I couldn't sleep as much as I wanted to because it was always too hot. So I had the brilliant idea that one day I would go out and I would go and see the fridge and bask in its glory. I mean, come on, it's the fridge. It's 54 degrees in there or something like that. I can go in there and just bask in the cold air as much as I want. And being a kid, you don't really do that often. So my master plan was set. I'm gonna go see the fridge. Picture this. It's the dead of night and no one's awake. You have 2 rooms full of people that are just snoring away sleeping. And you, a humble 6-year-old who's really small and tired, wants to get some cold air. So you creep into the kitchen and you slowly pull open the door. And inside is a smorgasbord of food and happiness and cold, frosty air. I remember really specifically that the first time I did this, I saw one of those water masks. You know, the ones that your parents used to wear for their face or whatever. I used to wear that. I used to call myself Robin because it was a mask and it looked like one of those. But the moral of that story was I finally had my cold air, and I would do it every now and again. I wouldn't do it every day, but it would eventually stop because I had to go because we had a hurricane hit and I had to relocate to another place with my father. And when that happened, something else took shape. Now picture this. This is a couple of years from then. I was 12 around the time, and being at that age, I had a lot of things to do and deal with at school. I was alone kind of at school. People were really nice, but I just had a calamity happen. I mean, Hurricane Katrina was a thing. It washed away everything I'd ever known and loved. It sent my family miles apart, so we couldn't actually see each other, and I was a really sad kid. And I remember in particular that my dad has a really big house, by the way. If he ever hears this video, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna have some explaining to do. But anyway, I would go into the house at night and I would get really sad because it was really hot. This is the country of Louisiana, so it was really hot, it was really humid. And so imagine me as a 12-year-old little boy. I was a little bigger than everybody, and I was really having it rough. I was trying to explore my options as being this new kid in a school that I've never been to. I never knew anything about it, and I was just, I was out of place for some reasons. And the only semblance of happiness I'd really have would be able to go home and hole up in my room and play GameCube. I used to play a lot of Kirby Air Ride and a lot of other things, but that's besides the point. So at night, for context, my house is really big. This house is huge. One room is way in the other part of the house. My brother's room were upstairs. And what I would do is I would get up and I would go, downstairs to the fridge, and I would just kind of look in. And I didn't really have as much enjoyment with this fridge because it was just kind of, something was off about it. Probably because of the fact that it wasn't exactly the same fridge, or it didn't feel like the same fridge to me. I don't know why, but I was a kid, so we just had to roll with it. And something interesting came about. I remember they had a walk-in pantry, and this pantry was like a closet. So you can close the door on this pantry, and nobody would know you're inside of it. And Lo and behold, on the inside of the pantry was a really tall deep freezer. Really tall, standing deep freezer, by the way. So usually you see deep freezers with like a little, you see them on the ground. This one was like a fridge. It was just a deep freezer. And I remember being curious one day, and I went in there, and I happened to open the door. I closed the door behind me for the pantry, and on the inside of the freezer had all kinds of things you could imagine. You know, they had frozen fish, seafood. They had, for some reason, they had a box of Popeye's red beans in there. I don't know how you got that, but whatever. And a whole lot of other things. The point was, though, that I was able to finally experience once again that nostalgic feeling of sitting in front of the fridge and just staring. Okay, and it kind of evolved into something else. You know, I ended up going there every night, and every night I would close the door once everybody was sleeping. It was probably around 1 o'clock in the morning. I would go, everybody would be sleeping. I would close the door behind me. I think I was able to lock it, so I'd lock it, and then I would just sit down in my area, and I'd open the freezer door, and I'd just enjoy the cold air. I remember I also would read things too, so I would I'd get familiar with what things were made out of. So if I would be like, oh, this one has corn syrup and glycerin and other stuff like that in it, and I was actually just enjoying the fact that I could be at peace. And this went on for a couple of years. I think about a year and a half. Not every night, but every couple of nights I would go and I would just enjoy my semblance of peace, and I would recollect. I would be at peace with what I was. And then tragedy struck. I remember walking in one day, and I wanted to go see what was going on because there were people in the house for some reason, and it was in the morning, so not in the morning, but in the afternoon, and I was kind of sad. So because people were in the house, and I wanted to go see the freezer, I wanted to kind of open it up and see what's in. Well, it turns out the freezer had given up. I walked in, and the freezer was just defrosting. It was just defrosting constantly, even with the door closed. It was just not working anymore. And there was a pool of ice full of water under the freezer, and they were talking about how they had to get rid of the freezer. They didn't know what was wrong with it, and I'm pretty sure inadvertently that was my fault because, you know, I was sitting there absolutely destroying this freezer every day for a year and a half. So they had to get rid of the freezer, and they didn't get a new one until recently. Actually, like, I'm talking about 2 years ago recently, so I've since been able to do that. And to be honest, this is a deep freezer that's like a regular deep freezer. It's got no light in it, so I can't see anything, and it's just a really sad tale. And eventually, when I moved back to where I live now, I would do it every now and again, and then the light went off in the freezer, so I can't do that anymore. And to this day, I've been longing to do so. So, that's basically the story. It's basically the story. So yeah, I would go into the fridge at the dead of night, and I would just stare in the fridge like some really drunk or really crazy stoned person. And nowadays, I've been recently craving that same thing, and even though I can't do it anymore, I've been able to manage. I have a fan by my bed, and the fan, one of those really high-powered fans, you know, the ones that you turn on and like damn near blows like a hurricane? Yeah, I have one of those now. And I just put a blanket over it at night, my blanket, and I like cover up my bed with all these quilts and stuff, and then I just let the air pocket, and then I just have a really cold sleep. But, you know, you gotta make do with what you got. So, that's my story. I really wanted to pass this dumbass story because I've been thinking about it for a little while, and I thought maybe it'd be nice to share it to you guys. If you like this video, give it a like and comment. Tell me what you had as like a really weird fantasy when you were younger. Tell me what you thought you wish you could do, and put it in the comments. I know me personally, if I was really good at making stuff, I would have made a walk-in freezer with a passive airflow, so I can just go in there and live in there indefinitely with like a really nice jacket and just, you know, lay down and sleep in a cold air. But enough of that. Subscribe if you like this video. There's probably more in the future. It is summer right now. It's really hot, so I'm probably gonna have to do that again. But if you like this video, subscribe, like, comment. I really appreciate everything, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.